morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, respective radio station island-wide, also the Tel TV Plus, Channel 15, and online viewers. I'm Charity Dunker, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. This time I'd like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment, and Infrastructure, the Honorable Patrice Gumbs Jr. to address you. Good morning, Minister.
Thank you. Good morning, members of the media, those listening via radio, online, TV, or on social media. This morning I have quite a bit to say over three topics, and that's namely the culvert, Dutch Quarter, and hurricane preparations and trenching. On the culvert, I'm happy to announce that Phase 1 of the repairs to the AJC Browers Road were completed last Thursday, July 25th, 1.5 hours ahead of the scheduled time of 12 p.m. Phase 1 was the condemning of the broken culvert and the filling in with concrete. Upon opening the road, the team discovered just under 5 feet of debris in the culvert drain. This debris included runoff soil from the hill as well as garbage. The grill that protects the entrance to the culvert had rusted away, and the steel used in the construction of the culvert was exposed. The level of decay of the culvert and the amount of debris indicated a severe lack of maintenance to critical road infrastructure. Next week, I will convene a meeting with the Ministry on the Road Fund. Its establishment will ensure structured finance to road maintenance, as well as provide a framework to ensure proper oversight. With regards to the complaints about the choice to undertake these works on a cruise ship day, I would like to inform the population that all factors were considered when the decision was taken. As Minister, I reviewed the proposal and asked about the status of cruise ships, availability of the contractor, alternative routes, as well as exemptions which were given to all heavy equipment, ambulance, and law enforcement vehicles, as well as tour buses. I took all factors into consideration, weighing the short-term economic impact with the concerns around safety. While I understand the concerns of all tourism stakeholders, especially taxi drivers and tour operators, unpopular decisions oftentimes have to be taken for the greater good. And I ask for your understanding in the decision that I take, and I took the decision to carry out the works, and I stand by that decision. While we encountered some challenges, including persons attempting to sneak behind the barricades, increasing traffic, we were still able to quickly finalize all works. With the introduction of the Road Fund, alongside a more long-term vision for improved network and infrastructure, these urgent major works will be less and less necessary. As such, Phase 2 of the project will involve an overhauling of the entire AJC Brower Road, including improved drainage. On my second topic of Dutch Quarter, with regards to the closure of ATLH Road in Dutch Quarter, the current roadworks are part of the larger EU infrastructure project for the neighborhood and will connect all the neighborhood with the sewage plant near the Lions roundabout. The current project involves removing the sewage pits. The current project, which involves removing the sewage pit, was scheduled for June 2023, but unfortunately was not executed. The ministry communicated a timeline of 6 weeks for this project, and we are now in week 4, and based on the flow of work, remain on target. The road is scheduled to reopen for vehicular traffic on Monday, August 5th, and we are of course monitoring the impact that the anticipated rain this weekend may have, but we do expect to be ready in time for the reopening of schools. Over the weekend, I was in Dutch Quarter to inspect the project and also the surrounding road infrastructure, and I wish to give the following updates to the area, asked by some of the persons that I met in the Dutch Quarter community. Regarding Gibbs Drive, where only a part of the road was hard surfaced, I have asked the team to review the situation, including the budget and logistics plan, to ensure that this can be finalized. Noting the very bad state of the road, this has my urgent attention. Regarding Richardson Drive and Caracas Drive, considerations were not made in the past for the placement of utilities underground. As such, the road will have to be dug up again to place the utilities underground. During my time as minister, I have called for increased dialogue between GEBE and VROMI, and this situation proves how important this communication with all stakeholders is. And finally, the paving of Manila Drive is indeed included in the CAPEX 2024-2025 road hard surfacing project. We will endeavor to carry this out as soon as possible with all the persons necessary at the table. I do want to encourage persons, though, to take note of the wrecks on the Manila Drive and to begin to remove them to help government in assessing the condition of the road for hard surfacing. I appreciate your continued cooperation and understanding as we work to improve the quality of life for all. And finally, on my third topic, hurricane preparedness and trenching, the ministry has been busy and continues to be busy with hurricane preparations. Haulers have announced weekly district cleanups, and the ministry held a meeting last week regarding expectations to ensure areas are properly serviced. The ministry is busy preparing a car wreck removal initiative to ensure that we address this issue strategically. I will share more on this next week, but in the meantime, I ask that you remain vigilant as to the number of abandoned and wrecked cars in your neighborhood and inform your community leaders and CCPOs. Cleaning of trenches in Dutch Quarter and Point Blanche was finalized last week, and this week, cleaning of the MPC trench commenced. This morning, I took a drive up to the area, and I'm happy to report that most of the trench is already completed, and work in the neighboring trenches, including Ebenezer Trench, will continue this week. Finally, we are in the end stages of dealing with the trenching tender. As a ministry, we sought legal advice on the situation, recalling that since 2022, no contract has been in place to maintain trenches and waterways. The realization of a contract will ensure regular maintenance and support the return of the flood pumps in the Great Salt Pond. The next step will be to contact all bidders and inform them of the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of VROMI, Patrice Gumbs, for those opening remarks. At this time, I'd like to invite the member of the media to have the floor and pose the question. Ms. Bibi Shah-Hodge of SMN News, you have the floor.
Good morning, Charity. Good morning, ministers, colleagues. Good morning. My first question to the Minister of VROMI, Mr. Gumbs. What is your plan of approach to tackle overdevelopment on the island? This is something your party have been criticizing for quite a while. And can you give us an update on shelters on St. Martin? You spoke about the trenches in your statement moments ago. I'd like to know, you said the contracts have not been finalized. Who exactly are cleaning these trenches?
Yep, okay, thank you very much. The plan of approach, apologies again, so the plan of approach for?
For overdevelopment. This is something your party have been talking about for quite some time. So I'd like to know, since taking office, what's your plan of approach to curb this?
Thank you, Bibi, for the question. Indeed, it is something that beyond party, I as a minister, and I think numerous governments have spoken about sustainable development. The question is then, how do you actually not only speak about it, how do you actually make it something that you do in practice? So one of the things that we have done since coming into office is a thorough review of existing building permits issued, as well as how we go forward with issuing building permits. Is a large number of complaints received, particularly in the area of Simpson Bay, regarding some of the new developments that have come on board. We are now actually busy reviewing the building permits for 2 of those developments. We are calling in one of the developers next week because there's an issue around, as you may know, number of these developments are actually on single unit residential lots, whereas some of them actually have been given a permit for more stories than is allowed in certain areas. In some instances, we are having a discussion about how we can review those, and in some instances, we're going to have a discussion about how to move forward, i.e. the revoking of a building. On a more larger scale, what we're actually doing is supporting the ministry policy. Currently, we have a zoning policy. One of the things that we're pushing to try and achieve within the medium term is to have a zoning ordinance. Why is that? Because with every different minister of Romy, everyone has a different idea of what development means. For me, I've stressed very much since taking office that development is not only about physical infrastructure, it's also about people as well as how you support development in infrastructure. The zoning ordinance, we are finalizing the different zoning plans that are currently in present. There's 13. The idea is to merge those into one or two, and from that, we'll take that to Parliament to basically be able to regulate more long-term how we develop outside of sort of individual ministers having a decision on what St. Martin should look like. And then your second question, of course, was on trenching. Indeed, since 2022, no structured contract has been put in place. What that means is that whenever a trenching initiative or cleanup is scheduled, we have to ad hocly, as a ministry, call on contractors, and of course, ad hoc work costs much more money. So the ministry actually has been paying a lot more money for ad hoc cleaning. It also means that cleaning is not done regularly. So what we see now is that unless someone from the ministry itself triggers a request to clean, trenches are not cleaned regularly. So in that sense, the trenching has been happening since the past 2 years, but not regularly and not structurally. So in some areas, for example, correlated trench, we see very good evidence of this, where there's 2 almond trees growing. As you know, almond tree takes quite a while to grow. There's also structural decay of that trench itself, and we're actually looking towards how we can move towards hard-surfacing the whole entire trench, as was done by the baseball field on Gladiola Drive.
And the hurricane shelters?
Yes, thank you. The hurricane shelters, that falls under VSA. So what I will do, I will take that conversation, that question towards VSA, and have them report to you in terms of shelter preparations. One thing we have done, of course, I met with the South Aurora Community Council last week, along with other stakeholders, VSA, the disaster team, in terms of how we can support the shelters. So, for example, cleaning up in and around the shelters, that is also part of one of the things that we're ensuring the district cleaners do as part of their contract as well.
Thank you very much, Bibi. And now we're moving on to Ms. Judy Fitzpatrick of the Daily Herald. You have the floor. Morning, Judy.
Thank you, and a very good morning to you, Charity. Ministers, good morning. Colleagues, good morning. Minister, I am going to ask you a question not in your capacity as Romy, but in your capacity as the replacement for the Prime Minister since he is not here. So my question is, and I guess everyone on the island wants to know, what is the status of the installation of the containerized generators that have arrived on the island? I mean, this Sunday will be 3 weeks, and we were told that within 3 weeks they would be operational. So I'd like to know, is GEB on track to meet that 3 weeks installation? And if not, when it would be installed? And recently we had an issue with generator 18, and our power outages went from 2 hours to 3 hours multiple times a day. Has that issue been resolved?
Yep, okay, perfect. Thank you for the question. Indeed, the Prime Minister is not here, but he's still on the island, so unfortunately, normally I wouldn't be able to answer, but this is a very easy question to answer, so I'll take the floor on it, simply because I think it does have quite the concerns of everybody, so I will announce that very quickly. One second. Yep, so what they're waiting for currently is a new control panel and fuel pipes. They will be arriving this week. And then, of course, everything will be ready and on time, and the generators will be operational as scheduled by the beginning of August. And then your second question, Judy, my apologies again. Could you repeat it?
Generator 18.
Yes, exactly. So generator 17, 18 did have some challenges that you would notice that just about 2 weeks ago, the load shedding increased quite a bit, and that's indeed because of failure of 17, 18. I've understood now that 17 is back online. I cannot confirm yet if 18 is back online, but I know that we have managed to get back 17, and of course the staff at GB are continuing the efforts to work on it, particularly given the amount of air conditions everybody is using now. And of course, we do ask for everyone's continued patience. We do understand the frustration, but again, it's important to realize that these generators have passed their critical lifespan. Unfortunately, the sort of initiatives to sort of support that curbing that issue was not done in the past, and now we're kind of feeling the impact of sort of bad decision making when it comes to infrastructure.
Okay, so just to be clear, the containerized generators, I noticed you said in early August, but Sunday really is the third. They will be operational and we will have no more power outage issues as of when you say the beginning of August. Can you be a little bit more specific? Are we looking at midweek?
Yeah.
End of
so
the
I
week?
think what's important to also realize is that these are one of the things that we've always said in how we bring across information, is that the generators can be purchased on Monday, and it also depends on certain things like weather. So when we have the generators, the containerized generators come in, thankfully the weather permitted, and they came quite very much on time. With the weather anticipated this week, it's scheduled to come, but depending on all the different factors, that will of course impact the reality of how soon they get to St. Martin.
So if these parts do not arrive this week, then we have a problem.
So we may experience more challenges when it comes to the putting the generators on time.
And that is dependent on if these parts arrive this week, as you're saying.
For the operationalization of the new generators.
Okay, and can you give us an update on the crankshaft? Because
Yes.
I believe we've also reached that deadline.
Yeah, actually, what's happened about 3 weeks ago, I took a visit as Minister of Rummy because, of course, there's a requirement for several different permits to come online from my ministry to support the implementation of the sort of phase 1, phase 2. They were actually busy, what's the term I can use? Grinding down the crankshaft to see if it can be reused. And I know that they were attempting to say that given the fact that the crankshaft's sort of situation, they can manage to use it for a bit more time. I'm not necessarily sure if the crankshaft has been completely put back in place, so I'll have to check out with the Prime Minister, but I do know that they were working on it when I was there about 3 weeks ago.
Sorry, so one final question. If we knew that these generators were coming since over a month ago, why weren't these parts ordered since then? I mean, why are we in a situation where there could be a potential delay because of the arrival of parts?
So just to clarify, the parts were all ordered at the same time. It depends on where your suppliers are. So they're coming from different areas, and that impacts the arrival. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Judy, for your questions, and also thank you, Minister, for answering. Moving on to Mr. Emilia of Island 92 Radio. You have the floor.
Good morning. Good morning, Minister, colleagues. I have a few questions. There's been quite a bit of discussion about the fuel clause. I certainly don't expect you to answer here in press, but could the ministry give a good, clear breakdown in terms of how the fuel clause is actually made up? Secondly, the GB board, can you tell us, are they missing board members? Who are the actual board members there now? It's not available on their website. And is government going through a recruitment process? And can we not have the public more involved in that recruitment process? The other thing is, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the procurement for the additional generators for GB. I have a copy of the procurement document here, and at the time you had mentioned that there was a confidentiality clause that prohibits government from speaking about it. But when I read the proposal, it says the proponent commits not to disclose confidential information, etc. It doesn't prohibit government or GB from speaking about the process. So at the time I had asked if you're comfortable with the bidding process. Did government have insights, oversight into it? How many bidders were there? Who was the actual winner of providing? And can you give us a comparison as to the prices from the different bidders, since ultimately the costs of these are going to be borne by the country, either GB or the public in some shape or form. And last question is, you've mentioned about the road fund. What's the timeline in terms of, and the process in terms of establishing that, and what the impact will be on the budget? Because I assume the money going into the road fund actually means money will come out of the total budget.
Mm-hmm. Yep, perfect. Okay, so then, Emil, thank you for the questions regarding the fuel clause and then also the general breakdown as well as GB board members. I will sort of defer them to the relevant ministers because that's a bit outside of my scope. And then, of course, when it comes to the procurement, let me first handle the road fund question. The road fund, there's two options on the table, either a sort of a separate budgetary line allocation, or we're looking at, from a sort of unofficial point of view, we're looking at the creation, just right now we're in this sort of conceptual stage, looking at can we do as a separate stichting or foundation that basically collects on behalf of government. Whatever choice we make would have an implication on the timeline, of course, but I think we just have to get started. I think we've been hearing about this road fund for quite some time, but nothing has actually been done on it. So in the next couple of weeks, and I think actually a couple of months, that's my objective, is to establish that road fund, that basically we move away from these sort of statements about the impact of maintenance and infrastructure and the lack of what it is, and actually do something to actually address the issue. So based on whatever we discuss next week, I can provide you an update on where we kind of have decided to go in the next press briefing, I hope. Yeah. And then finally on procurement, I want to just say that indeed the issue about who won the bid, who got the bid, the comparisons in pricing, it's important to realize that whatever information is given out in the public, be it the correct way or not, it doesn't mean it's okay for it to be out there. I think there's been so much discussions around who's gotten the bid, and then basically discussions around it was said already in press or in Parliament. The fact of the matter remains that that information cannot be divulged by government. If it's out there by some other means or source or by another person within government, that's sort of on them. But corporate good governance means that I can't dispel or give that information. I think one of the things that we also need to consider more and more is that sometimes the more information we have, it also impacts negotiations. Coming from foreign affairs, I can tell you, when we have discussions that are talking about a company's finances or who they do business with, that also impacts their credibility and sort of how much they can do in terms of can I get a loan or credit line. So though information may be out there, I will not be a part of any sort of messaging or outlet that gives information that goes against corporate good governance. So I hope that could answer your question.
The events that have led up to the constant power load shedding has certainly damaged the credibility and trust in GB. And I think the only way to counter that is with an overabundance of transparency. And so somewhere this transparency needs to happen. So I understand what you're saying, but that government as the shareholders' representative, so it's a monopoly company, the shareholders, the people suffer, government has the responsibility to oversee. Government can also instruct GB to be more transparent, to rebuild that confidence. And the other thing is you didn't mention about the board members.
Indeed, thanks, Emil. Indeed, I did say the fuel clause in the board members I will have answered by my yes, exactly. And then also when it comes to the issue of over-information, I think one of the key challenges is not that there's not enough information. I think one of the biggest challenges is how the information that can be communicated is communicated. And I think that's a challenge that has to be addressed and worked on because, and I completely agree, I think trust is something that's far more important than whatever you can give or impression you can make, but trust is very important. And I think communication between the population and the stakeholders of what's going on is critical and needs to be improved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, members of the media as well. The Honorable Minister of Romy has to be leaving us right now, so we'll allow him the chance to do so. And then we'll move on to the following minister, which is the Minister of Tiat. Thank you, Minister of Romy, for being a part of this morning's press briefing. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transportation and Telecommunication, Ms. Grisha Heyliger-Marten, to address you. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning. Good morning to my fellow member of Council of Ministers, member of the media, fellow residents of Suites Liga. Good morning to everyone. Today I have 3 points I'd like to brief you on, and I'll start with my meeting last week. Last week we held a meeting with senior officials from the Royal Caribbean Group to update them on the progress of the marketplace. I'm pleased to announce that they have fully endorsed moving forward with the project under the newly revised designs. As you may recall, we collaborated with vendors to create new design plans, which we presented to our co-financiers, the Royal Caribbean Group. These plans are in line with the broader Phillipsburg's beauty and incorporate insignificant adjustments to fit this vision. The updated design emphasized the cultural heritage of the island, particularly the Salt Pond, aiming to celebrate and reflect on our history. This cultural focus is intended to elevate both the aesthetic and historical value of the project, making it a landmark for residents and visitors alike. The architect, who joined the meeting via Zoom, provided a thorough explanation of the changes, including updates to the roofing and materials. These adjustments were made to ensure the project's durability, cost effectiveness, and alignment with the cultural theme. The architect also explained the rationale and benefits of these modifications. The financial plan of the project was also outlined, detailing the sources and the allocation of funds. The project will be financed equally with 50% of the funding provided by our co-financiers and the remaining 50% by the government of St. Martin. The balanced financial strategy is designed to ensure adequate funding while leveraging the expertise and resources of our partners and government support. The unveiling of the new design, as well as the groundbreaking ceremony, will be announced within short. During that meeting, the meeting also highlighted the growing trend among younger travelers to use debit and credit cards instead of cash. This was also provided by the Royal Caribbean Group. They wanted to adapt this trend. We need to then ensure that the vendors and local communities are equipped to accept card payments, which could enhance the tourist experience and boost local spending. This was one of the complaints they received from their customers. So we discussed organizing workshops and training sessions to educate vendors on the benefits and technical aspects of card payments, and we'll be following up on this initiative. Additionally, promoting the availability of nearby ATMs will ensure convenience for those who prefer to or need to use cash, complementing the shift towards cashless payments system. Another important aspect was the wayfinding signage to guide tourists from the port to the new marketplace was also emphasized. Proper signage is crucial for helping visitors navigate easily, enhancing their overall experience, and encouraging foot traffic to the market. All parties reaffirmed their commitment to the project under the new design framework. The collaboration between government and co-financiers and contracts is expected to deliver a successful, culturally enriched beautification of Phillipsburg. We also agree to closely monitor expenditures, maintain financial transparency, adapt to emerging tourism trends, and facilitate visitor navigation and ensure all necessary permits have been secured. We have noticed concerns regarding the energy crisis and the increase in gun violence, which has raised questions about their impact on the island's reputation. However, our marketing and PR firms monitoring the North American market has reported that these issues has not gained significant traction in the media, with only limited coverage in Puerto Rico and a small mention on ABC outlet in Canada. While it is crucial to address these issues directly by resolving the energy crisis and reducing crime, our efforts to maintain St. Martin's image must continue. The international media is currently focused on major global events such as the US elections, the war in Ukraine and Gaza, political developments in Europe, the Microsoft glitch, and the Paris Olympics, which minimized attention to our situation. Nevertheless, we must continue to highlight St. Martin's unique qualities and attract a diverse range of visitors. To this end, we discuss the need to increase investment in social media and digital media campaign in the short term. Our PR firms have agreed to focus on digital strategies, explore cooperative marketing opportunities, and continue monitoring the media coverage of the island. They will also work with influencers to amplify a positive narrative. Next, I have recently requested next is the airport security fee. I want to give you an update on that. I've recently requested, as you know, the Princess Juliana International Airport Operating Company, PGIAE, begin transferring the security fee, which it has been collecting from passengers since the relevant law was enacted in 2019, to government. This fee is set for $1 per passenger and is intended to provide crucial financial support for the ministry's civil aviation activities. Status for our airport is a top priority, and the contributions from this security fee are vital for the development of our civil aviation. My colleague, the Minister of Finance, will initiate the process of securing the payment of this fee from PGIAE within short. Lastly, I want to address the reports concerning the payment made to Minister Lewis. Here are the facts. The decision to make this payment was actually made by the previous Council of Ministers in June of 2021, following a court ruling in favor of Minister Lewis. Although the Minister decree, the MB, was prepared by the former Minister of Justice in May 2022, it was never signed before she left the office. Since Minister Lewis could not sign it himself due to personal nature of the decree, I, as a substitute, signed it. Unfortunately, there was an administrative error in drafting it, which is now being corrected. The Minister of Justice, in collaboration with the Department of Legal Affairs, is finalizing the national decree to replace the previous one. Thank you, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of TIAT. At this time, I'd like to invite the members of the media to pose any questions that they may have for the Minister. Ms. Bibi Hadshaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Charity. Are we allowed one round or two rounds?
Go ahead and proceed with your questions, and then based on the time, I'll be able to tell you when you're done.
Thank you. Minister Heyliger-Marten, thank you for bringing out some information regarding the payment to the Minister of Justice. I personally know how long the Minister had a bonus from the court. But what I want to clarify here is, was there an LB sent to the former governor to make the payment, and was that LB sent back? I want to remind you that the former Minister of Justice, in an interview on my platform, admitted that there was an LB, it was sent back, and she did push it in a drawer. I need to know if that LB was found and if it was worked upon and then sent back to the governor. In another question, Minister, I'd like for you to give us, give me personally some update on the vendors that were fined on Pondfield Road that I asked about 3 weeks ago, and you promised to give some answers, and an update on the investigation you initiated on the issuance of the bus and taxi license by the former minister. The license and taxi and bus license, you said there was an investigation by the Integrity Chamber, SOAB. I'd like to know if you can give us an update on that. And also, you said there was a report you were waiting on for the vendors that were fined and the inspectors that asked for bribe to not fine these people because they didn't have a vendor's license. Can you provide updates on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Bibi. As stated before in my statement, a MB was created by the then Minister of Justice. An MB was created in May 2022 by the then Minister of Justice. That was signed, and that, based on the way stated that it's supposed to be an LB. That is now being rectified. We're going to be changing it into an LB to make sure that it's done properly. And as for the two last questions you have, these are still ongoing. These findings are still ongoing. SOAB and I think both SOAB and Integrity State Chamber stated that they needed 4 to 6 weeks. I'm still waiting on those reports. And as for the one on regarding the vendors, I'm still yet to get a report on that. But as soon as I receive one, even if it's before next week Tuesday, I will inform you. Okay?
Thank you, Bibi, and also thank you, Minister. Ms. Judy Fitzpatrick of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Minister, I do have a few questions.
Yes.
First, a clarity. You said that the GB crisis and the recent shootings has not gained much international media coverage. However, recently there was something circulating on social media on homicide rates, and we were listed in the red as cautious. It was neutral, safe, and cautious, and we were in that category of cautious. What do you have to say about that? And if I may proceed to my questions, I wanted to ask this one at a time.
Go ahead.
Okay. I wanted to ask this to the minister that was there previous, but he had to leave. A call has been made for GEBE to wipe out all previous bills and start new from October. Now, we all know that GEBE has a lot of financial obligations at the moment as a result of the financial crisis. We have the containerized generators that we're renting, then we have other generators that we're purchasing, and then we have the big engines. Now, is a call like this, is something like this realistically, financially feasible for GEBE to do, given all of the financial obligations that it has currently and upcoming? I mean, some are saying that this is an election promise that is not feasible. I just wanted to know, as a member of the Council of Ministers, if you think this is something that feasible that GEB can realistically embark on. And just another quick one, I'd like a status of the hurricane maximum price list. You said 2 weeks ago that it would be going into effect in the coming days. Coming days has come and passed. And I'd also like an update on the assessment of the inquiry into taxi and bus permits. Thank you so much.
Okay, so let me see if it's 4 questions you asked, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the first one is regarding the social media.
The circulation of the cautious.
Okay, so remember I addressed it a while back. They're going to that's a standard, that's still on a low-level cautionary method that they would give to anyone across the board. All their residents across the board. Canada did it, US did it, that, hey, this is happening, just be cautious. It's just a cautionary measure. So we're still at the cautionary level. And the second one was
the GEBE wiping out all previous
that
bills.
One, that's a loaded question, because I would think GEBE would have to do a full assessment financially to see if it can meet its demands for the millions that they have to still pay towards these generators, and still see if they can cut down on the income. You notice GB recently has been literally pleading, and they're doing a lot of promotion, asking people to pay their bills. So I cannot answer that for GB. I don't have insight on the financials for GB, but outside looking in, I think knowing that what they have for future that they have to pay, I think it's a very hard thing for them to do. My personal opinion, but I can't say, and I can't speak on behalf of GB. Just my personal opinion. And then the third question,
hurricane maximum price list.
According to me, it was already listed in the Gazette. I would have to confirm that, but according to me, it was already listed in the Gazette. And the last one is the bus
and taxi permits, the assessment.
That's exactly what BB requested. I'm still waiting on SOAB and the Integrity Chamber on their feedback on that as well.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy. And now moving on to the next member of the media, Mr. Emily of Island 92. You have the floor.
Good morning. Good morning, Minister. I've noticed that I've done a little bit of research. Airfares to St. Martin right now are very high. Load factors are full, meaning the planes are very full. I noticed that Avalo is flying now. It's a low-cost carrier. They're flying from Hartford to Jamaica, and they've announced that they're in an expansion mode. They're a low-cost carrier. But the interesting thing is they're flying a lot out of the Northeast. Have you looked into approaching low-cost carriers to help alleviate prices and load factors? Prior to your swearing in as minister, we attended a presentation by the tourist office at Pelican where all of the different firms came to the island to make presentations. And in those presentations, all of them had a social media component to their contracts. So are they up to date with their payments, and shouldn't they have the responsibility of monitoring these various message boards and various groups on social media? You indicated, gestured that the fuel clause is actually something that would fall under TIOT. Is that correct? And would TIOT be willing to give a very clear breakdown in terms of how the fuel clause is actually made up, and an update on the Tourism Authority, please?
Okay. Thank you, Emil. Avalo, thank you for that research. That's something I would have to look into myself, given the situation where we are right now with elections and everything. But that's most important for us is finding ways to decrease the rates that's a priority for this cabinet, for our team. And I'll look into that suggestion by you from Avalo and see if we can even have some discussions with them in the near future. As for the firms, last week, in addition to meeting with the Royal Group, I also met with Big Ideas and Diamond, the main firms, and they are off but just one payment. So I'm following up with that as well. But I'm also looking into because of what I've met there, we have so many different PR teams. And I think Big Ideas is the only ones actually that's managing our social media. They have to come to Big Ideas for them to do the updates. But I'm busy looking at the methodology that is currently there and seeing how that maybe I can restructure it. Maybe I just mentioned earlier in my statement that I want to boost some more in social media. I feel like that the fund allocation is very low, so I may want to increase there more. So I'm busy reviewing everything, and with that, once I have a clear picture of where I want to see from a marketing perspective, I will then come back to you with that. But it has my attention. As for the fuel class, that's a question that I asked personally as a member of parliament maybe last year. I have that information. I can find that information for you because I don't know it by heart, but I should have the breakdown of the fuel clause, and I'll be sending that to you as well. Any other questions?
So clarity, is the social media, management of St. Martin's social media part of the contracts for the firms?
Big Ideas is one of them.
Okay,
that's
so
doing
they are
yes,
already
they are the
tasked.
ones, yes.
And then the Tourism Authority.
And the Tourism
The
Authority,
update.
we're in the process of finalizing a agreement with a particular person. I don't want to mention the person's name until I know it's signed, sealed, and delivered to start the project, not the project, but the full, the project of starting the STA. I think hopefully by the end of this week, we should have an agreement. It would have to still come to CoM for approval. And once it's approved, I will be announcing it publicly. But I think by I'm hoping by mid to late August, we can finally now have a foot in the door and start the process of finalizing, updating the current legislation, and finally getting the STA on the ground, working.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Minister. Final question from Ms. Bibi Acha of SMN News.
Thank you, Charity. Minister, I asked you this prior, but I'll ask you it here. Can you make available the list that was submitted to Parliament with all the persons that are now holding taxis and bus license? I'd like the final list.
Okay, so what we received from when we were in Parliament, we didn't get names. We only received their business license and I think the taxi, the number plate. I'll have to pull that information for you. They never gave us the names when we received it in Parliament. But I'll have to find out why it was sent like that. And based on that,
But now you're in that ministry.
Yes,
would you be able to provide me?
I want to find out exactly why it was presented like that, and if there's no issues, I will present it to you. Not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay? So I have two things. I have for Emily the fuel clause and then the taxi information. The new ones, right? Is what you're asking? Okay. Taxi and bus?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you
You would
very
like
much.
to have that as well? I'll send it to fuel clause as well. Okay. Not a problem.
Thank you, Bibi, and also thank you, the Honorable Minister of TIAT, Mistress Grisha Heyliger-Marten, for also answering the questions of the media. At this time, we'd like to invite the Honorable Minister of Justice and Acting Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, Lyndon Lewis, to address you. Minister Lewis, you have the floor.
Good morning to my honorable council member. Good morning to the press, and good morning to the people of St. Martin. I would like to start on a discussion of high crime. As a nation, on the critical issue of rising crime, and particularly appears related to a gang war taking place in other countries in the region. This issue has the attention of the law enforcement, and it continued to be monitored in case locally. I want to take a moment to speak directly to our young people. Engaging in these activities lead to only two things: death and imprisonment. Listening to the mother of the young man involved, I heard the voice of a woman in deep distress and despair and pain for her child. This is the impact of such a lifestyle. Immense suffering. This is a plea to our young people. Think before you act. Violence is never the answer. Our country is too small, and our communities are too interconnected, with friends and family closely linked, for us to endure the divisions that gang violence often creates. To those who consider engaging in such activities, I firmly say, not here. This is not who we are. To the community at large, and as Minister of Justice and also Minister of Youth, I assure you that I am committed to restoring peace and safety in our community. We are intensifying our efforts to collaborate with neighboring countries to combat the spillover effect. Furthermore, we are looking into a comprehensive plan to ensure that this does not happen. But we cannot do this alone. It is imperative that we as a society come together to support these efforts: community violence, community vigilance, reporting suspicious activities, and fostering a culture of lawlessness are critical steps every citizen can take. It is also mentioned out there that the Minister of Justice allowed the entertainer to come in. And I would like to make mention that this Minister of Justice nor the Acting Minister of Justice have permitted anyone to enter this country. We have not given any permit of any kind to the individual. It was solely based on the fact that the promoters of wherever this thing happened allowed this person to come in, probably under a tourist watch, and we, as government was never informed that this individual was on the island. That is the reason why we have an investigation. So this minister, again, I will reiterate, this Minister of Justice, nor my Acting Minister of Justice, signed anything for a promoter or for the entertainer to come to this island. And secondly, there was also no economic license issued by the Minister of TIAT for such a performance. So, as I also go forward, I would also like to mention, with regards to the political guidelines that was drafted and a decision based on the CoM, is still being vetted by YEZET, and where it came back with their elucidations of adjustments. The adjustments was made yesterday and is sent back to them for the final vetting and will be publicized also in short. I would also like to mention that batch 7 with regarding to the national decrees of justice workers will be sent out to the governor's office today. I would also like to make mention that my name was also mentioned in that batch, in which I have also informed my colleagues and also through FBB Finance that it would be removed and will be handled separately, as I am the minister and my documentation for all the years that has been pending is of course based on a court verdict and should be rectified as such. Batch 8, 9, and 10 are being fine-tuned. They're all finalized and they're being properly prepared to also be sent to the governor. So 8, 9, and 10 includes basically 75 individuals that will be getting their lunch bracelet. Human errors are made, such as name mistakes, etc. So they have to be going back and forth in order for it to be properly done before the signature of the governor on the lunch bracelet, and also for my signature or the acting ministers of justice signature. I would also like to make mention, I held it back for a long time because in this political world, everything seems to be a bashing from one minister or former minister. But because this minister has clear understanding of the Dutch language and understands what a LBHAM means, and by reading it and also sitting down with the staff who was responsible along with the former Minister of Justice, with regarding to which regulates the legal positions of justice workers, example for the police, immigration, and national detectives, are now faced with legal issues. And is also being vetted by judicial affairs, because in order for phase 2 to be executed, the proper law, whatever was given to the governor, as I understood, was not what they received back with signature, which does not allow, the decree does not allow for the justice workers currently to be retroactively paid from 10-10-10. This is also a major setback for the Ministry of Justice. I was trying to get this thing done beforehand, as I didn't need to put my colleagues in despair as, wow, we have a setback again. But since there's a lot of things being said about the Minister of Justice, I would like to make mention that these human errors or deliberate mistakes were done by the previous government. And therefore, this minister now is faced to have it rectified in order for the governor to sign again, and in order for my colleagues to be able to get their salaries adjusted from 10-10-10 forward. Hence the reason every national decree that we have right now is also based on the 1st of January, 2023. On the side of education, I must say the 1% vacation pay for subsidized schools were signed by my person. So just like all the other public schools who receive their 1% vacation pay, all subsidized schools, in short, will be getting their 1% vacation payout. From the Department of Youth, I can say 17 BOP certifications. The Department of Education is in recognition, validation of NEPA's S level program 3, L4, sports, physical activities and recreation, the SPAR, establishment of school vacation schedules for 2025 and 2028, and amended 2024-2025 school vacation schedule. As in the assignment of the work at the Raoul Illich, also sports complex, and the in the Islands Hoops Basketball 3x3 tournament were also signed off by my person. I must say we had more than 100 summer school students, which I also signed off their contracts, so they can also be compensated for the great job well done during this summer vacation. With that, I conclude and give the floor over to the press.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Lyndon Lewis. I now open the floor to members of the media. Ms. Bibi Hasha of SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Charity. Good morning, Minister. Thank you. I have some clarifications. Are you saying all the LBAs that were issued prior to you taking office now have to be corrected because of deliberate mistakes? Is that what you said?
I would not say if it's deliberately done. I can insinuate it is deliberately done. Hence the reason, with the type of information that the former minister is going out with, it really is, it's sad that you're trying to basically gain political traction on this minister. It doesn't work because I do not react. And second of all, we deal with facts and circumstances. In saying so, I will also elaborate further on the decision that was taken by the acting Minister of Justice on my part. Let's go back into history where everything was drafted by the former Minister of Justice. Even the Council of Ministers also agreed to rectify my payment based on a court verdict. Even though LB was sent forward to the governor and also returned, the former Minister of Justice herself also got her colleagues drafted the MBA. This was not done by this administration. The continuity has to continue. Because of personal issues and not issues of the country, my stuff was shoved in a drawer. There are also many other MBAs, because the governor at the time was not signing LBAs, that were also signed by the former Minister of Justice. And I have all those evidence as such, and therefore it can be proven that my stuff was shoved aside because I'm part of the political arena, and therefore you have an issue that I have taken many situations to court on the behalf of justice workers to rectify their salaries, and the former minister took it personal, so therefore I couldn't get my stuff fixed, but everyone that I worked for and got their stuff won in court, theirs were fixed.
I'm sorry, Bibi.
Okay.
Thank you, Minister. We'll have to pass over the mic to Ms. Judy Fitzpatrick due to time.
That was just a clarity. I need to have. Really
I'm sorry, Bibi. You'll have to forward those questions in writing to the Minister's Cabinet due to time. Yeah? Judy Fitzpatrick, please.
Thank you so much. Minister, I guess my most important question, since this is in the area that I live, can you give us an update on the status of the Dr. Martin Luther King Junior Primary School? Is it going to be open in time for the new school year? And I do also have a clarification, Minister. Okay. You indicated that the entertainer possibly came in as a tourist, and as such an investigation is being done. And my question would be, if it does turn out that he came in as a tourist and no economic license, I believe that's what you mentioned, were given so the taxes could be paid, what repercussions would there be for the promoter who allowed this person? Finally, a call was made on you by the leader of your party to give all children born in St. Martin to immigrant parents permanent residence. And my question, Minister,
Bibi, you're going to have to wrap. Sorry, Judy. Sorry, allow the minister to answer those two questions due to time once again. As I also stated to Bibi, we're running out of time. You'll have to forward those other questions in writing.
Mention quickly the first question that you mentioned. Just begin it, short.
The Dr. Martin Luther King.
The Dr. Martin Luther King project is being worked on as we speak, and hopefully we will have it open by in the next few weeks.
For the reopening of school?
Yes, for the reopening of school, we are pushing that agenda in order for us to have it open. And if there's any technical difficulties, if it's going to be open a little later, the public will be informed.
And the repercussions for?
And the repercussions, because at the end of the day, I do have a close relationship with the Council of Ministers, especially the one that's going to act on my behalf, where we spoke on the matter that they didn't get any permit from me. Second of all, we need to check, I think I do not recall the name of the bar where it happened, but we need to check the Moon Bar. We need to check their permit to see basically what it held in, basically what is allowed and what is not allowed. And basically when I spoke to the Chief of Police as well, where they had discussions with them, certain information was hidden from the police, hence the reason why we did not know. That is the answer that I got from the Chief of Police.
Okay.
Moving along. Mr. Emily of Island 92, you have the floor.
Good morning. Regarding the political rallies, just to be clear in terms of authorities, The request for public gatherings is a request that's made to the Ministry of Justice.
Yes.
And it's a decision that's made by the Minister of Justice, and that it does not require the review or approval of the Council of Ministers.
Yes.
And so, just for clarity, the current status of any public gatherings and specifically the election gatherings, the public meetings, what's the
Basically, the
status now?
take is any political public gatherings which requires a permit based on the draft at this moment will not be allowed. But like I said also in Parliament, and I'm going to say it here again, as long as those documents are not published, as long as they are not ratified by my person, we cannot infringe on the rights of the individuals that would like to hold these gatherings until that is done.
Yep. Thank you, members of the media. This brings us to the end of our question and answer round. Also, thank you, Honorable Minister, for answering those questions. Once again, thank you for being a part of this morning's
Thank
press
you.
briefing. For any further questions, please forward those to members of the media. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, July 31st, 2024. For rebroadcast, be sure to tune in to St. Martin Gov Radio, 107.9 FM, also stmartin.org, at also the Tell of the Government of St. Martin YouTube channel. On behalf of our team here at the Department of Communication, I'm Charity Dunker. Thank you very much for being a part of this morning's broadcast.